What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in on this President's Day. And yes, I want to talk a little bit about President's Day, the history of it, where it came from, and all that good stuff. Because why? Informed people make the best decisions. Now, will you ever use the information about President's Day? I don't know, but it is good to know your history. Because if you don't learn from your history, you are doomed to repeat it. And so I just thought it'd be really cool to just kind of go back. And maybe not everybody knows where President's Day came from and what it actually means. What is it? And so I wanted to get into that. And then also, I think towards the end of the show, just to kind of tease this topic we're going to talk about, I know everybody is worried about the election integrity. It is the number one thing I get asked all the time. Stephen, what is going on with the election integrity? Are they going to fortify it? Are they going to fix this stuff? Donald Trump can have the best poll numbers ever, but if Democrats cheat, then it's all for nothing. And listen, I'm kind of tired of this kind of defeatist mentality. Everybody saying, oh, what's the point? All this really, really down in the dumps kind of mentality. Not here, man. We ain't doing that here. We're going to go vote. You have to go vote. If you don't go vote, then you can't complain. You can't say anything. This is the most important election of our lifetime, folks. And I don't say that just because. I'm telling you, in my lifetime, we've never been at a crossroads like this in this country. Not since, I would probably say, Abraham Lincoln. You go one way, the country's doomed. You go the other way, we managed to save our country from another disaster. And it's something Winston Churchill talked about, how the American people always managed to find the will to pull themselves back over the cliff. So I want to get into this article I found on justthenews.com. That is John Solomon. And he's got this really good article on all the major lawsuits that are in court right now that will have the biggest impact on the 2024 elections. And obviously, for obvious reasons, it's important to know these things, just so my listeners can kind of you can rest easy knowing that there are things being done out there when it comes to securing our elections, election integrity, the lawsuits that are in court right now. Where's Mark Elias? All that stuff. Mark Elias, listen, in 2020, Donald Trump and his campaign, the RNC, they got caught flat-footed, man. They were not ready like they should have been. I don't think people really knew the strategy, the tactics, and the just sheer willpower to rig the 2020 election. But we do now. And there is no doubt that there's going to be a lot of shenanigans in the 2024 election. There's not a doubt in my mind. And I've said this a lot. We can win. We just have to win past the margin of cheating. So you overwhelm the cheating. You overwhelm the forces. There's only so many ballots they can come up with, folks. There's only so much stuff they can do. Donald Trump only lost by 42,000 votes in the 2020 election. And was that done by, printed ballots, cheating, mail-in ballots, drop boxes? Yes, it was. But a lot of these lawsuits have to do with getting rid of a lot of that stuff. And so that's why I wanted to kind of talk about it and get into that. And I wanted to get into that towards the end of the show. It's important for you to know these things because sometimes headlines like this can kind of just fly under the radar. For most people anyways, unless you're like me and I read everything. There is not a news article that gets by me, man. So I want to get into that. And then I want to get into something our military is up to, some very wild stuff when it comes to nuclear weapons being transported. Very, very, let's just say very concerning. And then we'll get into a couple other topics too if we got time. But first, I want to get into what is President's Day. So President's Day is officially known as Washington's birthday. It is a federal holiday in the United States, celebrated on the third Monday in February, originally established in 1885 in recognition of President George Washington. It is still officially called Washington's birthday by the federal government. Traditionally celebrated on February 22nd, Washington's actual day of birth, the holiday was moved to the third Monday in February in 1971 under the Uniform Monday Holiday Act to provide workers with more three-day weekends. So while the holiday is officially designated to honor George Washington, it has become widely known as President's Day and is popularly seen as a day to recognize the lives and achievements of all U.S. presidents, not just George Washington. This broader celebration is especially true in many states that also honor Abraham Lincoln, whose birthday is February 12th, and sometimes other presidents as well. President's Day is observed with public ceremonies, educational events focusing on the presidency, and, in some cases, reenactments and celebrations at presidential libraries and museums. It is also a popular time for patriotic and historical groups to hold events. For many Americans, the holiday also means a long weekend and is a popular time for sales and shopping. Not so much during Joe Biden's economy. During Bidenomics, you guys seen how long that lasted. That whole narrative they tried pushing out on the people, they're having a real hard time getting their lies and gaslighting the people now because of alternative media, because of, social media, because of Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, podcasts. It's almost impossible for these people to control the minds of the population anymore, like they used to. These news outlets, they controlled the media outlets, and so they can bend and twist the information any way they wanted. And they got so much stuff past the American people. And I don't think the American people really cared because everything was kind of going good for them. You're only going to have problems when people start to ask questions, and people start to ask questions when things get really bad, just like what happened with Joe Biden. This is why you have such a huge, this is why Donald Trump had such an impact on the influence of elections and the presidency and politics in general. Nobody really paid attention to politics. I mean, I did, but we got more people involved in politics now than any other time I've ever remember seeing in history. So it's actually a good thing. It's good when people participate in their democratic process. It's good when people participate and they stay up to date with what is going on in their country and their politics and their Congress and all that good stuff. Because now people are starting to ask questions like, yo, wait, so you're sending how much to Ukraine to pay the pensions of their public officials, to pay their health care, to pay their 401ks? We don't have health insurance. We don't have 401ks. We're drowning out here, and you're paying $95 billion to another country. $95 billion. Do you know what they could build here in this country? What it could do for the American people? And it's just so shocking how many Republicans are so obsessed with sending money to Ukraine. Very, very bizarre stuff. They're just so infatuated with war. The war machine has been sucking the American people dry for decades. Something Eisenhower warned us about. The military-industrial complex. He said that for a reason. Like, he's seen this coming. And I think he was trying to warn the American people, like, yo, look, this thing is starting to develop, and if you don't get a hold of it, it's going to be running your country into the ground. And that's exactly what's happening. We're not struggling because of the politicians. They just do what they're told to do by their donors and special interests. It's the donors and special interests that are running this country into the ground because they're prioritizing their own self-interest, their own weapons contracts, and the military-industrial complex, this fourth branch of government that we talk about all the time. They're running the country, not our politicians, which means we have no say-so in the matter. Until now. Now the American people are really starting to pay attention. And one of the greatest things that Donald Trump has ever done, whether he knows it or not, he got more people involved in politics than any other person I've ever seen. And that's a good thing, even though you got a lot of people that are completely brainwashed, completely off the rails when it comes to who they listen to and, where they get their information from, but they'll come around. I think they'll come around, but it is indeed the military-industrial complex running this place. And when I was a Democrat, Democrats were totally anti-war. They were totally secure borders. They liked immigration, but they knew that they needed a secure border or it was going to sink their welfare state. Another thing Democrats are obsessed with is the welfare state. Free health care, free this, free that. And once upon a time, Democrats knew that having free migration would destroy the welfare system. They knew that. They understood that. But now it's just like they want both, and you can't have both. Just like the great Milton Friedman said, you can have a welfare state or you can have free migration, but you can't have both. And so I think people are starting to see this insanity within politics and how Democrats can take things too far, because they always take things too far, no matter what it is. And a lot of this, you can boil it down to the secularism that has completely subdued the Democrat Party, or you can boil it down to just lack of knowledge and where they get their information from. I was watching a debate from this guy named Destiny, a complete leftist lib. He was debating Ben Shapiro, and obviously Ben Shapiro just completely wrecked him. Completely destroyed him, because these people come from a very emotional side of things. So everything is based off emotions, and then they can tweak and add stuff, more notably the law, based on how they feel. And so one of the debates that they were talking about was Donald Trump inciting an insurrection. And Ben Shapiro's going through like, listen, insurrection is a very legal term. There's a reason why he's not being charged with it. And this guy kept going on. It's like, but yeah, Donald Trump, like, he was completely convinced that Donald Trump knew he lost, that Donald Trump purposely, incited the violence on January 6th. And because of that, he should be charged with insurrection. It's like, wait a minute. They're totally okay with mob rule. And so the way they see it is, as long as they can invoke mob rule, then all I have to do is just convince the mob. And that's how they would want to run the country. And unfortunately, law and order goes out the window. Justice goes out the window. Due process goes out the window. And this is why on the show we always say it's, from their mentality, it's you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. The ends justify the means. And they're coming from a place, and it all comes from a place of emotions. They want to make themselves feel better. And in order to do that, you need to remove fundamental principles in this country, like the Constitution, like due process, like innocent until proven guilty, all that stuff, in order to get your desired outcome. And so that's what I noticed from the debate was it was say anything, do anything, and convince yourself that Donald Trump is guilty no matter what. Like, Donald Trump is guilty no matter what he says, no matter what he does. These people will always believe Donald Trump is guilty of something. And so whether that means you got to say he's guilty of insurrection, even though he's not been charged with it, they'll just say it enough to where people believe it. And as long as, the way they feel, I'll just get enough people to believe it so that the mob controls the justice system. And unfortunately, it's worked for a while, but I see it starting to change a little bit. Anyways, how the hell did we get on this conversation? I started with the military-industrial complex, and this is a little concerning to me. And it went completely under the radar for most media outlets. I didn't hear anybody talking about this. So this article actually came out on January 29th, almost a whole month ago, and it's hat tip to Matt Pressey. And it's an article from the BBC. It says, plans progress to bring U.S. nuclear weapons to Suffolk. So plans to deploy American nuclear weapons to an air base in Suffolk have progressed, according to a U.S. Department of Defense. A contract to build shelters to protect troops that would defend storage facilities at RAF Lakenheath has been awarded. The document states the work is in preparation for the base's upcoming nuclear mission. What? A nuclear mission? So the U.S. Air Force has yet to respond to a request for comment. The Ministry of Defense said there was a long-standing agreement among NATO partners not to comment on the location of nuclear weapons. In March 2023, a document from the U.S. Office of Undersecretary of Defense disclosed how $50 million had been earmarked to build a facility known as a surety dormitory at RAF Lakenheath. This phrase is understood to refer to nuclear weapon storage. So they're building nuclear weapon storage facilities in Suffolk. This is actually pretty wild and bizarre, kind of like a big deal. When we have nuclear weapons being transported to different countries, that is pretty concerning. And so here is a sub-article, Bulletproof Glass. The following September, a U.S. government contracts award notice was published, which showed how $924,000 was to be spent on constructing guard facilities, known as hardened ballistic security shelters. 22 blast-resistant maneuverable cabins were being built with bulletproof metal flat sheets welded onto the frame to protect our high-value assets of RAF Lakenheath's Defense Force, the 48th Security Forces Squadron. The specification for the windows included glass which could withstand an impact from a .30 caliber rifle. The contractor appointed for the work was an United Arab Emirates-based company called Specialist Solutions, LLC. The plans were first revealed in the Telegraph newspaper. And here's another thermonuclear bomb. This would be the first time in more than 15 years nuclear weapons have been deployed on British soil. In 2008, the BBC reported the bombs had been removed from RAF Lakenheath, which houses 4,000 service personnel and more than 1,500 British and U.S. civilians. The base is currently home to the U.S. Air Force's 48th Fighter Wing, the only unit in Europe which operates both the F-15E Eagle and the F-35A Lightning II fighter aircraft. Reports from the U.S. indicate the newer F-35A had been flight tested to use the latest variant of the B-6112 thermonuclear bomb, which paved the way for the aircraft to begin carrying such weapons. This is crazy. So you got two things here. You have a base that houses one of the only bases in Europe that houses the F-35A Lightning. And then you have reports saying that they were test flying the F-35A to carry thermonuclear weapons. Listen, this ain't a coincidence, folks. This is what is happening on British soil. So American nuclear weapons are being transported to British soil. American fighter aircrafts that are test flown, that were tested to carry thermonuclear weapons, are being stationed in Europe. This is what's happening under the radar. They are transporting nuclear weapons to Britain, and they're transporting planes that can fly and dispense those nuclear weapons. We are on our way to a thermonuclear war. Like, this is crazy. So the first time within 15 years nuclear weapons have been deployed on British soil. This is never a good sign. Now, I'm not saying that it's not I'm not saying that they're going to deploy these nuclear weapons. I just think it's very concerning that, we have American thermonuclear weapons being transported to Britain in a time where we're watching all these brush fires start up all over the world. These little conflicts, these little proxy wars, and in some cases, full-blown out war, like when you have with Russia, Ukraine, and Israel and Hamas. Like, you have American nuclear weapons being transported to Europe. It's never a good sign. So the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament's General Secretary Kate Hudson said, quote, "These documents highlight plainly that an upcoming nuclear mission will be stationed at RAF Lakenheath." I think it's Lakenheath or Lakenheath. Maybe we should just say Lakenheath. Lakenheath sounds funny. It's Lakenheath. We'll just say Lakenheath because Lakenheath sounds weird. I don't even know how you pronounce it, but I guess it doesn't really matter. So it's shameful that both the U.S. and U.K. governments continue to take the public for fools on this serious matter, refusing to give us crucial information about our security, she added. Ms. Hudson claimed it's escalated the dangers and had, quote, "made us a nuclear target." That's true, because wherever these nuclear weapons go are now a first strike order. So when you have an engaging enemy country that launches nuclear weapons, they're going to launch weapons where their nuclear silos are. That is in mutually assured destruction in any nuclear attack. Whichever country launches the nukes, they launch those nukes, you would think at populated areas, but no, they launch the nukes at known nuclear sites so that the country won't launch a counter strike. And so what they do is they launch these nukes and they try and strike all the nuclear weapons to take them out, so that that's less nuclear weapons coming back at them, because that is just how it goes. It's mutually assured destruction. That is MAD, M-A-D. One country launches nukes, the other country sees it, it launches its nukes, and then you have the apocalypse. That's pretty much how it's going to go down if there's nuclear weapons involved. There's actually more to this story. Let me try and... So it says, according to the defense publications, Jane's B-61-12 was capable of an explosive power known as a yield of up to 340 kilotons, or more than 20 times the power of the Hiroshima bomb. And so we're talking about just one of these fighter jets, the F-35A, can carry an explosive weapon, a thermonuclear bomb with the explosive power of 340 kilotons. That's 20 times the power of Hiroshima from one jet. So one jet can drop one of these bombs that's 20 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. This is so crazy. And 340 kilotons, it's not like insanely small. It's not insanely big, but it's pretty decent size nuclear weapon. Now there are it's a kiloton. It's a kiloton, not a megaton. And so one of the biggest bombs to ever be used in a testing, to ever be tested, was the Russian Tsar bomb. TSAR. It's called the Russian Tsar Bomba. It was detonated on October 30th, 1961. It is the most powerful nuclear weapon ever tested. This is crazy. The bomb had a yield of 50 megatons of TNT, though its design allowed for a maximum yield up to 100 megatons if it had been equipped with a uranium-238 fusion tamper instead of one made of lead. The decision to use a lead tamper was made to reduce the amount of radioactive fallout. Man, the physical size of the Tsar Bomba was also immense, measuring approximately 26 feet long and 6 feet in diameter, and it weighed 27 metric tons. Its detonation produced a mushroom cloud of 42 miles high, nearly 7 times the height of Mount Everest, and the bomb's shockwave was observed circling the Earth 3 times. The Tsar bomb remains the most potent example of nuclear weapon capability and serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of thermonuclear weapons. All right, so 1 megaton. So that was a 50 megaton bomb, the Tsar bomb. So 1 megaton is equivalent to 1,000 kilotons. All right? So 1,000 kilotons. So that bomb that's on the F-35 Lightning is 340 kilotons. So that kind of just give you a perspective of how big these bombs are. It's not small, but it's not like, insanely huge either. 20 times bigger than the bomb on Hiroshima, and how many people died in the Hiroshima bombing? I think with both weapons was like 250,000, 250,000 people. So a pretty big bomb. And we got those now being tested and transported over in Britain. Why? I have no idea. This is what, this is what pisses me off so much about, the circumstances that Americans that the whole world is in now. Does any rational person think that this would be happening under Donald Trump? No, because for 4 years it didn't happen. And you have a useless, feckless bag of raisins, just a mannequin of a president in the White House, just doing nothing. All this is happening because the world knows Joe Biden is a weak, feckless old man with dementia. And this is exactly what happened, I think, is the ripple effects of the Afghanistan withdrawal. Listen, folks, all this stuff started happening after the Afghanistan withdrawal. It was like the testing phase of how this presidency was going to be carried out. The entire world was watching, and then boom. Then you had the spy balloons, you had the Russia-Ukraine invasion, you had the Israel-Hamas conflict, you have all these brush fires being started in the Middle East. So many conflicts have started under Joe Biden's watch. It is so insane to think people would want another 4 years of this. The world literally depends on whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden gets elected. And I'm serious. This is why I said in the beginning, our country is at a true crossroads right now. If Joe Biden remains in office, we are going to see all of this stuff just get worse and worse and worse. If Donald Trump gets back into office, you can see these brush fires start to get put out because it is his, and it's not because he's some, just this mastermind of peace. It is because he's unpredictable. Donald Trump is a very unpredictable man, and that is one of his tactics. He purposely stays unpredictable. He wrote about it in his book, The Art of the Deal. People that are unpredictable when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to a power struggle, it's a lot more advantageous for them. Because people don't know what you're going to do. And this is exactly why we didn't see all these conflicts and all this chaos and death and destruction happening under Donald Trump. It was his unpredictability. People didn't know. They just watched this dude drop the mother of all bombs, a Moab, on I think it was in Syria. And so when people see that, when he shoved a Hellfire missile up Soleimani's ass, the ISIS leader, He vaporized him with a Hellfire missile. And so people see that stuff and they're like, whoa, I don't want to mess around. It is the unpredictability. Being unpredictable gives you a much, much bigger advantage over your enemy. And that's why Donald Trump was so effective. And it's not on accident. He does it on purpose. He wrote about it in his book, The Art of the Deal. It is a negotiating tactic that he uses. And same thing with his NATO comment that he made the other day. People are freaking out about this comment he made about NATO and how he was just going to, if NATO didn't pay their fair share, he was going to let Russia take over NATO. He's not actually saying, yes, I don't care if Russia takes over NATO. I know that's what it sounds like, but this is a tactic of his. It's like the big ask. You ask something, you say something much, much greater than what you actually mean. And so anything you get is better than what you're getting now. And that is essentially what Donald Trump does. He is a negotiating master. And I'm so sick of people ragging on this dude for his negotiating tactics when we know it works. I wish people would just leave the guy alone and let him do his damn thing. This is the problem. People fight him on every single step he takes, even though everything he's done turns out to be right. So I just wish people would just stop taking Donald Trump for every single word he says as he's going to be like this authoritarian, Hitler that's coming into office. He's going to do what he does best. That's negotiate deals under budget on time. That is it. That is what we need, a businessman running this country right now. We're 33, 34, going to be $35 trillion in debt. We need somebody to come in here and fix this stuff. He's got to put out these brush fires. He's got to calm down all the chaos, death, and destruction, these wars breaking out all over the world. And he can do it. But people are going to have to let him do his thing, man. I don't try and figure the guy out, man. I am not trying to get inside the guy's head. I'm not trying to be his grandson. I don't want to invite him over for dinner. This is what I just don't understand people's mindset when it comes to Donald Trump. He doesn't bother me that bad. People go absolutely berserk when it comes to Donald Trump. It's actually quite insane. So there you go. To kind of just with the thermonuclear weapon being transferred over to Britain, and we have the F-35A Lightning being test flown with nuclear weapons. That is not a coincidence. There's a reason why both those things are happening at the same exact time. So I told you in the beginning, since we spoke about our country coming to a crossroads and how this is the most important election of our lifetimes. I think it's important that we talk about what is being done with our elections right now. Well, lawsuits are being done. What's going on with election integrity? I know a lot of people are concerned about it. So I went and found an article from Just the News that is John Solomon, and this came out on February the 14th. And it is hat tip to Natalia Mittelstadt. She says there are multiple ongoing or just filed election lawsuits this year that could have wide-ranging impact on the 2024 elections, as plaintiffs from both sides of the political aisle challenge election laws or applications of them. In 2020, there were as many as 400 lawsuits brought by both Republicans and Democrats regarding election procedures and laws, and election administration was quickly changed during the COVID-19 lockdowns leading up to the presidential election. This is where we talk about Mark Elias and Perkins Coie, how weeks and months before the election, there was all these election changes, these law changes, illegally, by the way, in most cases. They didn't get determined to be illegal until after the election. But this is the problem. This is how Democrats roll. They do these drastic things just to get an election win. And then after the election, nothing else matters. This is that transition integrity project where they war game all the scenarios out. One of the scenarios is overwhelming the system with lawsuits. And so they're going to try and do the same thing again. Mark Elias, wherever he's at, follow him closely. Because wherever he's at, there's certainly illegal election law changes happening. It's exactly what happened in 2020. Just they overwhelmed the system with law changes, and when it came to mail-in ballots, when it came to signature verification, and so two things that really swayed the outcome of the 2020 election was the massive increase of mail-in ballots, right? And a massive decrease, a record decrease in signature verification errors. So there used to be like a 6% rejection rate when it comes to signatures, because they want to make sure it's the right signature, and so the ballots get rejected. Well, in 2020, it was like 0.05 of signature verification errors, so rejections. And so you can see the double whammy. The most mail-in ballots in U.S. history on top of the least amount of ballots being rejected. Boom. What do you get? Massive amounts of voter fraud. Mail-in ballots, drop boxes, and signature verification are key to having some type of integrity in our elections. If you really want to fix it, you get rid of all those. In-person voting, same-day voting, and voter ID. That is it. That is the only way we're going to secure elections. However, you have Democrats that refuse to allow those to be implemented because they know it benefits Republicans. Democrats can only win elections if they cheat. That is it. It's the only reason why you wouldn't want voter ID or, increased security on drop boxes and mail-in ballots. Like, why would you not want those things to be secure? Why would you not want voter ID unless you planned on cheating? That is it. And so COVID-19 was the key to Democrats' success in winning the 2020 election. They don't have COVID this time, folks, but that's not going to stop them from filing lawsuits. All right, so back to the article here. This year, new election lawsuits are focusing on candidate eligibility, different changes in law, and alleged violations of election laws. All of these lawsuits may greatly impact how the 2024 presidential election will be conducted. And here are some significant lawsuits to follow. And so right now you have Donald Trump versus Norma Anderson. So on Thursday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in the case of Donald Trump versus Norma Anderson, in which the Colorado respondents have argued that the former president should be taken off the primary ballot. We all know that. That's the big one, the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. That one, folks, I think is going to get denied by the Supreme Court. There's no way the Supreme Court's not going to allow Colorado to decide who can be president or not. It's not going to happen. I mean, it's not even close. And so that is obviously going to be a win for Republicans. Next one is Pennsylvania, and I'm just going to go through these real quick since we're coming up to because I want to try and get into one more topic. So we're just going to go through these real quick. You have Pennsylvania State Conference of the NAACP versus Chapman. So the Pennsylvania State Conference of NAACP sued the then acting Secretary of Commonwealth in 2022 regarding the Commonwealth's decision to not count mail-in ballots that are either missing a date on the outer return envelopes or have an incorrect date. The Pennsylvania counties were ordered by a court following a Republican lawsuit in 2022 to reject undated or incorrectly dated mail-in ballots. However, the issue is still being litigated and has reached the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The NAACP argues that the mail-in ballots are valid, regardless of the incorrect or missing date, and should be counted. This is Democrats. Like, Democrats do not think all legal votes should count. Their motto is count all votes, whether legal, illegal, signed, unsigned, dated, before the election, during the election, after the election, doesn't matter. The more ballots they can get, the better it is for them, because that allows so much more cheating. All the shenanigans benefit Democrats, and so they trying to remove as many guardrails as possible. Who the hell thinks it's a good idea to count a ballot that has no name, no date, and that comes in after the election? Nobody thinks that is a good thing to do. It really throws into question the integrity of elections. And the last thing you want are people questioning elections. And in Democrats' eyes, you're not allowed to challenge elections. And so here it is, Democrats bring all these shenanigans. They bring back they decrease the rejection rate. They throw in mail-in ballots, millions of ballots going into mailboxes all across the country. And then they're like, yeah, but don't question the integrity. It's all legit. Trust us. It's like, what? Come on, man. Like, this is exactly why you have the most people ever in U.S. history questioning our elections. The election integrity in this country right now is off the charts. People don't trust our elections right now. And what do Democrats want to do? They make the situation worse by trying to sue to mandate states to count ballots with no date or no signature. It's like, my God, man. What is the outcome of that going to be? I don't know. But we're going to find out. This is why I'm reading this to you. These are the lawsuits that need to stay on your radar. And once they come out, once we hear the results from them, I'll go through them with you. And I'll let you know for sure, because like the article says, these are very important lawsuits that are going to have a big impact on our election. So on Tuesday, America First Legal filed a lawsuit on behalf of Strong Communities Foundation of Arizona and a voter against Maricopa County Board of Supervisors and the Maricopa County Recorder. This is called Strong Communities Foundation of Arizona and Eric Lovelace versus Maricopa County. The lawsuit alleges that Maricopa County has violated multiple state election laws, such as refusing to maintain chain of custody for ballots and require in-person ballot curing for voters, as well as using artificial intelligence for signature verification on ballots instead of only humans. The county, which has the largest population in Arizona, has had numerous election irregularities over the last several years. Maricopa County didn't respond to a request for comment. This is a big deal. Again, Arizona, a state Donald Trump must get. We've seen the shenanigans of 2022, where you had 50% of the machines just stop working in the middle of the election. Some voting districts, they ran out of ballots, the printers didn't work, like all this craziness happens. It is the chaos effect, the chaos theory. You create chaos, and those that create the chaos control the situation. And this is what they did in the midterms in Maricopa County in 2022. And so Republicans, more notably the America First Legal, are trying to get ahead of this. And again, I'll keep you up to date with the results of that lawsuit. All right, next one is Libertarian Party versus MSV Wetzel ET.AL. I don't know what that means. Last Monday, Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit on behalf of Mississippi Libertarian Party challenging a state law that allows absentee ballots to be received and counted after Election Day. Really? This is insane. Like, why are Democrats even fighting this stuff? You want ballots to be counted after the election? This is why we don't have election day anymore, folks. We have election month. Is because of Democrats. Democrats are destroying our election process. I say this all the time. They are the threats to democracy. They are the threats to our voting process. Period. Because they are fighting and suing to keep all these ridiculous laws in place. Like, so Democrats want ballots to be counted after the election? It doesn't make sense. And then they were like, oh, well, we have the most secure elections in the world. The most secure election in U.S. history. You know, they know damn well no one's going to believe that when you have Democrats and all these shenanigans. Oh, what are people going to think when there's an election going on for a month? Oh, they'll probably say, oh, this is pretty secure elections now. We don't have election day anymore. We got election month. Oh, I'm sure it's just normal. No, it's not normal. They're trying to normalize stuff that's just not normal. We must have election day, period. You cannot have weeks and weeks of counting ballots coming in with no date, no signature. Like, come on, man. Again, making it easier for Democrats to cheat because it's the only way Democrats can win. The Republican motto, the conservative motto, I would say I'm a populist conservative, is easier to vote, harder to cheat. And it's so easy to do. We can do it. We've done it before. We've done it for decades. We've done it for centuries. But now, all of a sudden, that Democrats' ideas suck, their policies suck, and nobody wants to vote for them anymore. They have to cheat in order to win elections. This is why the southern border's open. They want to change the voting demographic in the country. It is the great replacement theory that they keep calling us conspiracy theorists over. All right. So just to get a little bit more into this lawsuit, because it's a pretty important one. So absentee ballots can be received as long as 5 days following the election. Judicial Watch argues that under a recently enacted federal law, there cannot be an extension of Election Day, barring any catastrophic events. Makes sense, right? The Republican National Committee and the Mississippi Republican Party have also filed a lawsuit challenging this election law. The Mississippi Secretary of State's office declined to comment due to pending litigation. Late ballot acceptance deadlines have resulted in delays in tabulating and announcing election results, which the president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, J. Christian Adams, has previously said leads to, quote, the distrust and chaos in the system. Bingo. However, some election lawsuits can disrupt election administration, according to another election integrity watchdog. Jason Sneed, executive director of the Honest Elections Project, said last month that one of the biggest threats that we're going to face between now and November is going to be just the torrent of left-wing litigation. He explained, quote, we saw the chaos, we saw the confusion, we saw the rules changes that Mark Elias and his operation were able to impose on states throughout the litigation process of 2020, and they're already starting that up again this year. Boom. See, everyone knows it's Mark Elias, man. Where's our damn Mark Elias? We don't have anybody like that, you know? This guy's a freaking legal genius. He goes out there and literally sways entire elections just through lawfare. Democrats are very, very effective with lawfare, if you haven't noticed. Quote, I think litigation is going to be one of the big threats because you can go into the November election with the best laws on the books, but if those laws are gutted in your courts, if those laws are gutted through consent agreements between a Democrat suing a Democrat, then that law is not worth the paper that it's written on, Sneed said. The Honest Elections Project recommended in an election reform report that states, quote, ensure the elected lawmakers write election laws rather than the courts. I agree. The reform states that, quote, legislators should protect their constitutional authority to regulate elections by barring executive agencies from agreeing to legal settlements or consent decrees that substantively alter or weaken election laws. States should prohibit sue and settle litigation in which activists and partisans sue officials to secure an agreement to ignore or effectively rewrite election law. Yeah, so again, Democrats are extremely effective at litigation. They're very good at suing. They're very good at lawfare. We're watching this play out right now. So there's a lot more lawsuits that are happening, but we're running out of time. I will continue this. on the next episode, on the next segment, and if and when we get results from these lawsuits, I'll share those with you as well. But those are just three big lawsuits that are happening right now, just so I can give you, my listener, the sense of security, knowing that there are things being done. Like I said, it's the number one thing I'm always told all the time is, Stephen, what's the point if Democrats are just going to cheat? There's no point in voting. I don't like this defeatist attitude. I really don't. We got to go out and vote anyways, folks. It's like, so what are you going to do? Just stay at home during election time because you think you're going to get cheated out of your vote? You may. But if you don't, if you just sit at home, then we're definitely going to lose. That's like giving up. And there's another thing that Democrats are really good at is demoralization tactics. They try their hardest to try and demoralize their opposition. They do this on election night. They'll sit there and they'll go out and they'll have their media outlets report that the poll numbers are really down for so-and-so. And then the people standing in line are like, oh, they're just going to lose. I guess we'll go home. Like, this is what they do. It's a strategy that they use. Democrats cannot win elections, folks. When you look at a congressional map, the entire damn country is red. It is red, except for pockets of blue. And those pockets are big cities, urban areas, where Democrats can go knocking door to door. They can get whole apartment buildings done in 5 hours. And this is why they're so effective. Their ground game is off the charts. They are way better on their ground game than us. They're way better at their lawfare than us. They're way better at litigating and getting rid of election laws and shenanigans, just plain cheating in elections. They're better than us at it. They're very, very effective creators of chaos. And that's how they win elections. That's how they control the situations. But I think Republicans are starting to learn. If there's anything good that came out of 2020, was Republicans starting to notice that they got to change their game. We can't be the party of old where we go on election day, we vote. It's like, no, we got a ground game. We got to get our stuff together, because Democrats, they're playing for keeps, man, and they're leaving it all on the field. They are not messing around. They know that this election is one of the most important elections of our lifetime as well. They know that this country is in a crossroads. They know that the American people are sick and tired of all the garbage that we've been watching the last 3.5 years. And so they know that people aren't going to vote for this crap. And the only way that they can get votes is illegitimate votes, by like going to nursing homes and getting hundreds of thousands of ballots from nursing homes. This is what they do. They go into nursing homes and they have these nursing home patients sign a ballot or fill out a ballot while they're whispering in their ear. And then what? You got 20 nursing homes and you come out with 20,000 votes. You know what I mean? Like, this is what they do. Their ground game is unbelievable. And we have to have an equally, or if not better, ground game than the Democrats. And I know it's hard, but I'm telling you, we got to win this election, folks. If we don't, I really don't know where this country's going to go, but I can guarantee you it's nowhere good. Another 4 years of this, it's unsustainable where we're at right now. Unsustainable. We cannot sustain the situations Joe Biden and the Democrats have put this country in. This ship will sink. There is so many holes poked in the sides of this boat. Nobody's at the wheel. We're getting bashed by winds. We are like a rudderless ship, just getting bashed in a sea of just chaos, and just getting battered by waves of just war, death, destruction, heartache, misery. And so we gotta right the ship. We gotta get someone behind the wheel that knows what they're doing. We gotta get we gotta get out of this storm, man. And the only way we're gonna do that is by beating Democrats. And I'm sorry, but I just feel like it has to be Donald Trump. It can't be anyone else but Donald Trump. I remember I supported Ron DeSantis in the very beginning. When the election was over, I'm like, you know what? I'm a big supporter of Ron DeSantis. I live in Florida. The guy's great. I know he's a conservative. Like, I got this guy's back. And I wasn't even thinking about Donald Trump. I'm like, yeah, maybe, you know what? It's time to move on from Donald Trump. And then the Mar-a-Lago raid happened. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And I'm to a point now. Democrats have turned Donald Trump into a freaking legend, dude. And they don't even know it. What they're doing is so counterproductive. It is going to blow up in their face so bad that I hope a year from now, they can go back onto their media outlets and they can look back at everything they did a year up into the election and say, man, if we wouldn't have done this, we would have won. If we wouldn't have done this, this wouldn't have blown up in our face. I want them to see it. These people must be defeated in 2024. They must be. And they don't need to just be defeated. They need to be completely destroyed. I'm talking demoralized. Give Donald Trump the mandate to run this country and right this ship. And the only way to do it is by going out in overwhelming numbers and voting for Donald Trump. I know you may not like him. I know you may not like what he says. I know you may not like what he looks like. It doesn't matter, folks. What matters is the country, your kids, your kids' kids, your great-grandkids. Think about the future of your family, of this country. That is all conservatives want. We just want to conserve this country, to leave it to our kids, to our grandkids, better than what we had it. And as of right now, that's not happening. I don't think any of us do any of this for ourselves. I do it from the future. For when I'm gone, we're all long gone, we know we did the best damn job we could have to leave a country to our kids either the same or better than what we had it. That is the goal. And the only way to do that is by righting the ship. We must turn this thing around, man, because we are heading right towards a cliff, and Democrats have their foot smashed on the gas pedal. And listen, I don't even know if they realize it. That's what's most scary to me. It's like we see all this stuff, they're acting like a bunch of totalitarian tyrants, with the lawfare, trying to jail and imprison their political opponents through the censorship campaigns, through our own government, false flag operations with their intel agencies. They don't even see any of this stuff. That's what's terrifying to me. So you go on Twitter, you go on social media, you see these people cheering on, imprisoning Donald Trump for 700 years, where he will die in prison. Let me repeat that. You have a president, a former president that's running for office again, a guy that gave this country the best years it's seen in decades, being faced with 700 years in prison. He will die in prison. Democrats are not messing around. That, to me, is way overboard. And what's crazy is these people can't even see it. That's what's most terrifying to me. Like, I could see, if they seen what they were doing and how they were acting like a bunch of lunatics and how they were acting like a bunch of totalitarians, and then they can make some corrections. But these people can't even see it. Much like the Germans couldn't see the slaughters of Jews and how they were acting towards the Jewish people. You see this phenomenon happening in front of your eyes. And just like my daughter, I was explaining to her the Holocaust maybe a week ago. And she's like, how did that happen? How were people just standing around? How did people support the mass slaughter of millions of people? And I said, much like what's happening right now, is it happens incrementally. People become compartmentalized to what's happening. And Democrats are so focused on just getting Donald Trump, they don't see the wake of damage that they're leaving behind. This is what's so dangerous. It's not the fact that they're actually doing it, it's the fact that they don't know that they're doing it. And that is the most destructive. And I'm not saying that Democrats are going to go slaughter, Republicans and conservatives. Although, at this rate, I don't think they would really care if, Joe Biden said round up all the Republicans and round up everyone that voted for Donald Trump and put them in concentration camps. I think you would have a lot of Democrats, and I'm talking not all Democrats, I'm talking about the radical leftists. They'd probably cheer it on. They would probably help call in a hotline on their neighbors saying, yeah, I think my neighbor voted for Trump. If you want to come by, I think he gets home at 4 o'clock. I could totally see Democrats doing that. That is what's scary to me. And that's exactly what happened during the Holocaust. The people didn't realize what they were supporting until it was too late. You never know you're in a cult until after you leave the cult, period. It's like this cult mentality where you just ignore the You ignore everything that you've known before. You ignore common sense, reason, and rationale, all in this get Trump mentality. This Trump derangement syndrome is what I think it's called. And it should be a legit mental illness. That's exactly what it is. They are deranged. They are obsessed with getting Donald Trump, that now this man is facing death in prison. This is how far we've come. It is like, if this was happening in another country, if this was happening in Russia or Iran, Democrats would be outraged. Libs would be outraged. The left would be outraged. Americans would be outraged. But this is happening in our country, where you have a president persecuting his political rival and then trying to imprison him for 700 years. That's happening in our country, and Democrats can't even see it. Pretty crazy. So anyways, I have a lot more to get into, so I'll go ahead and probably just put that on the next segment, but I will pay attention to these election lawsuits, and once I get more information on them, I'll let you know. And I hope you guys had a good weekend, a nice long 3-day weekend, and you enjoyed yourself and got some rest. So I guess you can thank George Washington for that one. I know I certainly needed that 3-day weekend for sure, but now it's back to work. Unfortunately, it's back to reality, and I want all of you to have a good day back to work, and I want you guys to have a good day. If you guys want to follow the show, please make sure you follow the show on Rumble. You can find the podcast on all podcast platforms. We got an election coming up in 9 months, folks. These next few months are going to be rough. I told you to prepare yourself. Things are going to get rough. The closer we get, the more desperate these people are going to get. And desperate people do desperate things, and that's exactly what we're watching right now. So people need to brace themselves, stay strong, and listen, we got this. We just got to stay strong, and don't let Democrats, don't let them demoralize you, because that's what they're trying to do. These next 6-7 months is all a demoralization tactic. It's their strategy to try and win the election, to try and keep you at home so you don't go out and vote. Don't fall for it. We got this in the bag. Just so long as everybody goes out and votes and brings 10 people with you. We got this. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys had a good weekend. I want you guys to have a good day back at work. Time to hit the reset button. We've got a brand new week heading for us. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great week. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.